My name is John Turrisi. I'm a lead at WorkUP Queensland, and we're a service, a capability and capacity building service for the domestic and family violence, women's health and wellbeing, and sexual violence services in Queensland. We've been around since 2019. And I guess in the last few years, we've had a little bit of a pivot in our work in that we've had more of a focus on this grow the workforce space and really strengthening pathways into our sector because of, I guess, the high demand that's going to be needed and the additional investment into our specialist sector. So this has called us to kind of, really focus on our partnerships with universities and really those critical pathways into our sector, with student placements being one of those. So this has been, I guess, a slightly different way of working for us. I guess the idea was I guess there are services out there. Certainly, a lot of services in our sector do currently have student placements, but then there are services that may not have the resources to do that. So we wanted to do a bit of a lunchbox session to kind of promote different ways of working and how different services might be supporting placements and really effective placements in our sector. At this point, I would just, before I proceed, I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the beautiful lands in which both Jesse and I are sitting on, the Turrisi and Yagara people, and pay my respects to elders both past and present. And thank you all for joining us. So I think the only other thing I just wanted to add was that I guess where this idea came from was us, and I will introduce to Alison at Lifeline Darling Downs shortly, actually in Brisbane, but normally based in southwest Queensland. And I'll leave Alison to talk to that. But we had the privilege of meeting Alison in the early days when we were conceptualising our Grow the Workforce work. And we found out about this Outback's placement experience model that Alison had been, I guess, leading for a number of years. And so we used that as our first, I guess, theme to explore. This is our third episode of this series now. And this series will also feature a men's behaviour change focus as well, with YFS as well. And we'll do a little bit of conversation and question answer at the end as well. So at this point, I'd like to, I'll just introduce Jesse as well, my colleague, and then now pass on to Alison. Thanks, Alison.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Jesse. And I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands, which I'm on the same lands as John and Jesse at the moment, but also the lands of which I work on and where Ainsley is currently based at the moment, the Bidgera people, and pay our respects to our elders past and present. I'm been working with Lifeline Darling Downs now for 7 years, since 2018. Started with Lifeline Darling Downs with 3 programs and 3 staff. And over the 7 years, we now have 14 programs and 22 staff. And some of that success is through this Outback placement, in sort of the retention rate of some of the students that come out, because we give such a diverse experience. They fall in love with it and they stay in our remote areas and join our team. But the ones that continue on, they still get a wealth of knowledge from what we've got. We have so many services, as you can see there. But one of our biggest one is the domestic and family violence. And we do people using violence, people experiencing violence, children's violence, sexual violence, in that forensic space as well, in supporting people, court support, and a lot of prevention work within and awareness in communities. And alongside of that, we have a lot of children's and families and youth programs, which complement either side of our DV sector, youth justice, psychosocial and mental health, and emergency relief. And we also have a children's contact service, which has also been really it's been taken up very well with the community, especially in our DV space where we can manage risk of the children being with the non-primary parent. And in saying that, today I know we're talking about the Men's Behaviour Change program, and we'll get into a little bit more of what we do and how we do it. But I'd just like to introduce Ainsleigh, who has been with us for now 9 weeks. And I'll let you tell your story, Ainsleigh, and then also her experience with the Men's Behaviour Change since she's been on placement.
Hi everyone, I'm Ainsley. I'm currently on my first placement with social work out here in Charleville with Lifeline and alongside Alison. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's been a really great experience working in like a small community, also with an amazing organisation that has so many programs for people within small and remote communities to link into. And so I guess my placement experience so far within the Safe Connections team, in particularly the Men's Behaviour Change program, I was drawn to the program because I had an interest in the domestic and family violence sector. And I was also interested in understanding more of perpetrator behaviours and how programs can work alongside men to encourage and support changes in their behaviours. And a moment in my placement that had a strong impact on my learning was sitting in the MBC groups and listening to the perspective of different individuals who see and experience life differently. I realized that most cases are not linear and there are layers to individual circumstances that contribute to their behaviours. And observing these groups has helped me to learn on placement that different types of violence men are perpetrating and how they can learn about the cycle of power and control to create equality within their relationships and their personal lives. And I guess too, being in the MBC program and in the domestic and family violence space on my placement, just affirmed these values I have working within this space, because it showed me the importance of working alongside both the victims and the perpetrators to bring change. Working within the MBC group and placement has allowed me to reflect on the accountability it can bring to working with men who use violence. And it's also deepened my understanding of the systemic complexities within the DV space. And so I guess as far as my skills go within the MBC program, what I've learned most is during my placement in MBC and in a rural location and remote location is having the ability to adapt. Undertaking a placement in a rural and remote location requires adaptability in dynamic and changing environments. And I've learned that to be open throughout my learning placement and adjust my skills to different scenarios. So I guess looking ahead, this placement has really affirmed my career goals and beliefs to have a social work career in a rural and remote location. I went into this placement wanting to experience a rural placement because I had a passion for it, but being out here, I've really loved my placement in Charleville and have thoroughly enjoyed my time within the community and also within Lifeline. Small communities are really diverse, resilient, and they often face unique challenges. And I guess this experience has just deepened my passion for wanting to work in rural settings. And then any advice I have for emerging practitioners or future students considering a placement in the Men's Behaviour for Change program is to go into the experience with an open mind and with your critical thinking skills. It is easy to establish your own bias as a student, but I believe personally that the key to successful placement within the program is to be open-minded and learn from the lived experiences of the participants and also the knowledge that the group facilitators bring as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Ainsley. Wow, that's a lot. And so alongside of the placement with any student, especially Ainsley, we do have a lot of other sort of rural supports like SQRH, who help out with accommodation. And also with SQH, they also get additional like education and access to education facilities because there's a building on campus building in near the hospital. They have a wraparound service of one of the parts that I sort of have made this model is there's like a triangulation around the student of support. So generally myself and the team are their task sort of supervisors. They have an external supervisor for practice of their disciplinary and in Ainsley's case, the social work. They also have the university that they are able to sort of connect with. So they've got a really good support network around them, which provides that supporting environment. It supplies growth in their learning. And I think that's a little bit of the success of, again, why students have decided then to stay on, even if it's just for 2 years in a rural placement. And it's a good thing for me. 2 years is perfect. They bring a lot back into our communities in that way. There's also a lot of the placement's not just about the learning aspect on the job. When you come to an Outback placement, it's also the social aspect. You're actually leaving your home for quite a long period of time. So sort of connecting students into the social events like the races and the balls and self-care festivals and any other sort of community organisation or event. Sporting groups, a lot of the sports out here are social, so it doesn't really matter if you don't know how to play, you just go along and have a bit of a laugh anyway, so linking up to where they like. And there's also the arts where you can get involved in a lot of different visual arts and musical festivals and things to help out and volunteer. So it's quite a full package. It's not just a student placement, it's sort of a little bit of a life experience. So that's why it's become a Outback placement experience. And I think that's all the slides for me, or have we got one more? No, so I am going to take a break and hand over to Alex from YFS Responsible Men's Program and let him explain the next part of this segment. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alison and Ainsley. Really cool to hear what you're doing out in Charleville and to hear Ainsley's perspective on placement as well. Thanks for having us. I'm coming to you today. Simon and I are both coming to you from Logan, which is the lands of the Yagara and the Yugambeh speaking people. So I work in the Responsible Men program here at YFS. The program it's a men's behaviour change program. We've been running the program at YFS now for I think over almost 15 years. So it's been running for a long time and has been changed and reviewed as time has gone on. I've been working here for about 3 years now. And so that's my full-time role. I'm a behaviour change facilitator. I'm also the steering committee co-convener for Speak, and Speak is the kind of the peak body for services, behaviour change services in Queensland. So if nobody has heard of Speak, I'd encourage you to jump on Google and find our website. There's lots of good resources there for practitioners and also other people not within the sector to sort of point you in a direction around the behaviour change space. Yeah, so at the moment I'm facilitating 2 groups a week. I also had the opportunity, I guess, to supervise our first internship that we ran here at YFS, and that was in partnership with WorkUP. We piloted an 8-week behaviour change facilitator internship, which was a really, I guess, it came about as I'm going to talk a little bit about it more in the next slide, but it came about from a period of long advocacy from before my time, really acknowledging that in the behaviour change space and in the sector that staff retention and recruitment and retainment is a real challenge for us. And so the pilot, I guess, came about as advocacy from that and with support from WorkUP. But similar to hearing from Ainsley, I was also first introduced to men's behaviour change through my social work placement back in 2020. Prior to that, I had no idea about the sector. I didn't know that it was didn't know that that was a possible career pathway for a social work student. And so I guess that was my first introduction as well. And so hearing the reflections of Ainsleigh and sort of the learnings that you're going through as well, I'm resonating with that. And sort of thinking about my own experience as well. Yeah, the benefits of actually sitting in a program and doing that placement, the benefits that that has had for me as I've gone on in my career as well. So that's about me. If we could jump next, Jesse. Yeah. I guess I will say I'm going to introduce Simon in a little bit. So Simon was one of our interns. We first ran the internship back in February, and Simon has been with us since then and is now on a paid placement and working within our program in Responsible Men as well. So essentially, yeah, like I was saying, it came about as a partnership with WorkUP. We had two intern facilitators that we recruited. They both completed the 8-week internship, and so essentially they walked out of that internship with a qualification as an emerging behaviour change facilitator, meaning that in Queensland we signed off on their ability to meet practice standards as an emerging facilitator. And excitingly, Simon's with us, and also our other interns gone on to also be contributing and working in the sector, which is really cool when we think about the goal of, I guess, developing the workforce. I guess the overview of the internship there is really, it was about meeting those requirements, which was the 32 hours of group observation, also 25 hours of training, the access to supervision. So pretty much essentially like a student placement, shadowing workers, reviews, assessments, intake and assessment, and also exposure to case management, writing, documentation, notes, as well as the opportunity to then step into the group space and facilitate after about a 4-week period. Yeah, and so I guess thinking about it as an opportunity, not only for people in the sector, but this is a really good opportunity as well for students. We are happy to have students on board as interns when we've run the internship. And it's also, I'm aware, North Queensland Domestic Violence Service, as well as us, we're going to be running this, offering the internship again. So if anyone's, I guess, on the meeting from anywhere around Queensland, definitely to be keeping an eye on that, and would encourage you to sort of reach out. If you've got questions about our internship, you're more than welcome to contact us. But just to keep, I guess, an ear to the ground through WorkUP channels as well, to sort of listen for the next offering of that. Where would I find out about that? About the internship, I guess WorkUP. So John, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we do have a newsletter. What we might do is pop a link into the chat around that, and yeah, we might get some information into the chat. But basically, we do have an article on our website with a bit more information around that. It is at a pilot stage, so it's really early days, but I think that's probably the best one. And there's also a 2-page evaluation of the program as well, which will be interesting as well. So we'll pop a link.
Yeah, and we can have a bit of a Q&A at the end if you've got some questions and that. Yeah, happy to have a bit of a discussion after this. Yeah, for any more questions that you've got for us all.
Thank you. So yeah, I guess that's the summary of the internship, but I'm happy now to send it over to Simon and yeah, get to share your perspectives on what it was like as an intern and also as a student currently on placement with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. And hello, everyone. I would like to also, before I get started, pay my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders here with us today on this Zoom meeting, and pay my respects to the Yagara and Yuggabeh speaking people of the Logan region, and acknowledge that this land has never been ceded. And Um, very much pay my respects to Ashley as well. Thank you so much for your presentation. That's very, very interesting to hear about the work that you're doing for your first placement, which sounds so exciting. Um, I am currently a social work student at the end of my degree, so I'm on my second placement. Um, and the way that I got here was through the opportunity of the YFS internship. Um, I came to this space through my passion for understanding the social construction of masculinity and wanting to get find a way of bringing my social work degree to the space of masculinity. So I reached out in 2024. I reached out to Michael Flood at QUT, who put me in contact with Dr. Brodie Evans at YFS, and a chance meeting with Dr. Evans at the Speak Forum towards the end of last year led to me keeping my ear to the ground about a potential opportunity coming up in 2025. And so, as it happens, an internship was advertised at the end of 2024. I applied for that, was successful in taking one of two places for that internship in February of 2025, and had an amazing, just really, really deep learning experience with YFS and in particular with Alex. And that learning for me was about practice framework. It was about learning about family and domestic violence and everything that that represents, and the work that YFS does in that space, and in particular with men perpetrating violence. So as a social work student, I was able to learn very quickly a practice framework for men's behaviour change. I was very quickly indoctrinated into a Duluth model, which comes out of the US, and was able to participate from about week 4 of the internship in co-facilitating the men's behaviour change program. And so that experience led to further opportunity in covering for one of the employees here at YFS that was going on leave. That opportunity again got extended towards the end of June, and by chance, a role came available, and I was offered a role, a full-time role, beginning the 1st of July. And the benefit of that was that it just happened to coincide with my second trimester requirement for a social work placement. So I'm now currently on a paid placement with YFS, which I know is amazing in its rarity. And I feel very blessed and privileged to be in this position, knowing how challenging placement can be for social work students. So in terms of skill development, you know, in certainly in men's behaviour change, we talk about risk assessment, and we talk about at YFS, we talk very much about collusion. So from a social work perspective, these were new skills for me to learn about, bringing my understanding of social work theory to practice in a space that hadn't traditionally been talked about at university. So there's certainly no conversations at university around men's behaviour change programs. And so bringing my social work theory to practice has been quite different in the way that I expected to be able to do that. So the biggest lessons for me around building rapport through person-centered approaches, but not taking it to the point where it's colluding with men in regards to the way that they would minimize, deny, or blame others for their actions and behaviors. So being able to be a social worker, but be a social worker that challenges their actions and their behaviors, but in a way that doesn't shame and doesn't create a stigma around their behavior. So certainly huge lessons for me in terms of how I bring my practice to what I do in co-facilitating. But I think more importantly, the lessons that I bring or have learned, I should say, in terms of the way that I co-facilitate with a female co-facilitator and what that means being a man in this space, what it means in terms of bringing feminist practice and feminist understanding to life, and what it means in terms of the way that men treat me as a man in group versus the way they treat my female co-facilitator. And being able to empower a relationship that is all about equality, and it is all about demonstrating to men what partnership looks like, which has been an absolutely amazing opportunity for me to learn and practice. So looking ahead for me in terms of placement and what the internship has given me, I'm juggling that space of the challenge of being an employee and having the responsibility of being a worker and meeting those employment KPIs, so to speak, but at the same time staying in the space of student and remaining in that headspace of learning. And that's a challenge I haven't quite overcome yet, and that's something that supervision works really well on, and the ability to reflect in this space is so amazingly dynamic. Reflection in this work is so dynamic that it is really, really at the forefront of everything that we do. And so developing my reflexive practice in line with the practice framework that is the Duluth model that we utilize, but is also around the social work theory that I'm learning as a student, which is just bringing a sense of my passion for masculinity and what it means to be a man in society and what it means for women who are oppressed through patriarchy. And that is something that I will continue to bring to my practice. And happy to answer any questions at the end of this.
Thanks, Simon. That's wonderful. And sort of just going off the back of Simon, they're explaining the complexities of men's behaviour change so nicely. And thanks for sharing your enriched learning in that space, because there's so much in that space. And that's sort of where within the Outback placement, I so sort of push that triangulation of support around every student for supervision, as Simon mentioned, supervision for the practice, supervision on task, and also the support of the university, because these are heavy spaces for students to be learning in, but this is where it all begins. So yeah, thanks everybody.